The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the City of Neenah Common Council meeting for Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. Welcome, everyone. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. The clerk will call the roll. Please indicate your presence on your roll call device as well.
Council President Borchard.
Here.
Alderman Bruno.
Yeah.
Erickson.
Here.
Linsky.
Here.
Ellis.
Here.
Steiner.
Here.
Paulnow.
Here.
Lendrum.
Here.
And Weber.
Here.
Thank you. Alderman Linsky will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are 3 items under introduction and confirmation of mayor's appointments. I'll read them out. The reappointment of Gilbert Miller, Sam Erickson, and Laura Kemps to the Police Commission for a 5-year term expiring May 2031. The appointment of Jason Kozlowski to the Business Improvement District Board for a 3-year term expiring December 2028. And the appointment of Jacqueline Batley and Riley Seib as a BMOG representative to the Neenah Arts Council for a 3-year term expiring April 2029. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of those appointments? Seeing no objection, those appointments are confirmed. Thank you to everyone who steps forward to serve on our commissions and boards. It's very much appreciated. The next item on the agenda is a downtown parking update by Community Development Director Nyforth.
Just gonna plug in here. You got my background. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. This is something that we've been talking about. I've talked to multiple council members about parking in our downtown. Really, the purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the city's parking inventory and obligations and kind of where we're at. Parking is always a big conversation, especially in downtowns. It's a good problem to have. It means we have businesses here. It means people want to park in our downtown, but it's still something we do need to deal with. The reason why I kind of started learning more about our downtown parking is, in the past I was looking at city obligations, and when I started the CIP process here this spring, and the ramp had been included in the past, so I kind of went down the rabbit hole to come, figure out like why had we, started including a new ramp in our CIP. So I'm going to talk about what I found, and just so you know, this is not the last conversation, it's the first of many. So if you have any questions, please feel free just to give me a shout or ask during the presentation. Presentation goals, I really just want to focus on our inventory and obligations. There's different staff members in different departments that work on the other aspects of parking, such as maintenance, like ramp maintenance, which is our public works department, enforcement, that is police. So tonight we are really focusing on the parking inventory and obligations. This conversation might spur additional conversations or meetings to talk about those other items, but tonight, really just focusing on the obligations, because that's what our department in community development, that's really what we handle for the city. So moving forward, this is what we have for inventory right now. We have just under 1,700 total spots. That's including the ramp and our surface parking lots throughout the downtown area. Some lots are a little bit more, marked and, a little bit in better shape than others, but technically this is the parking that we do offer in our downtown area. Talking about obligations. Our parking obligations really started back with the canal lot back in 1994 when future Neenah Development Corporation started obtaining easements for some of the West Wisconsin property owners. Those easements that were granted to some of the businesses to park in that parking lot right behind them. You can see this is an old photo before Alta was there. So that's really where we started kind of monitoring parking, having parking obligations, and people having rights to park in certain areas. We had Alta with the ramp constructed, Plexus headquarters, Affinity, now Ascension, the Plexus Design Center, Theta Care, and 201 West Wisconsin. Of course, Alta, their development really started, the parking in the downtown with the ramp, and that's really when we had a lot more, other businesses moving down to the area. As I mentioned, Neenah is not unlike many other communities where we're always trying to figure out parking in our downtown, but it's something that I think we're happy to do in order to keep the businesses in our downtown. Next, I'm going to talk about the parking ramp obligations that we have from a city standpoint. So first of all, Alta. Alta has about 531 total stalls in the ramp. They have 507 in the upper floors, and then they have some visitor parking in the main floor. Plexus was originally given 375, but they transferred some to the Brown lot, which is actually in the Arrowhead Park, and then Alta needed some more, so they transferred some to Alta. So right now, Plexus just has 295 that they're obligated to in the ramp. The 201 West Wisconsin, Jason Tayak, he was guaranteed 10 spots in the ramp. And then I mentioned before, those businesses on West Wisconsin, they were guaranteed 36 spots back in the 90s when those easements were in place. And just so you know, I know the easements, that's something that our staff really dived into this past year. We did obviously work, with city staff, and they are all, valid, and we are obligated to honor those. Surface parking lots. Right now, we have Ascension, formerly Affinity. They actually used to, before Solaris was built, right here, that used to be a parking lot. And so actually, Ascension had parking spots there. That's about 50 spots that we said, hey, Ascension, can we build Solaris, and can you just park over in the parking lot, the purple lot? So that's something, we do need to make sure that they have enough parking. The purple lot, though, that's about 70 spots. Eventually will be removed from that inventory when that site redevelops. That's part of the warehouse site. The blue lot, that's the Presbyterian Church. That's privately owned. We have a lease through 2030. Just telling you that it's privately owned. We don't control it, but overall, we've had a good relationship to continue on that lease. I mentioned the brown lot. That's the Arrowhead lot. That one, working with DNR through kind of all these Arrowhead issues, they said that they would prefer if that's just publicly open to anybody. They don't love it that Plexus has signs out there, so that's what staff is going to be working on, is to permit Plexus to park in other places, so that remains truly public. And then beyond that, just with some of the horse trading and everything that Plexus and Alta were doing, technically the city still owes 74 spots to Plexus overall. Could be in the ramp, it could be in the surface parking lot. I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of what we're looking for in the future, but just want to let you know that that is the only business that technically we don't have specific spots identified for. And this has been going on since 2008, so it's not like they're coming at us saying we need it tomorrow. They're aware of it, and it's something that I'll mention here in a little bit that we're going to be working on. Talking about actual permits, with all, the obligated spots and everything we have, we still have about 200 available spots in our downtown parking system. They're not going to be right in front of maybe somebody's building, but as we hear a lot of consultants that deal with parking studies, a lot of times communities, we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. And so it's something that we do have some in the area, so that's something that we're definitely considering as we're trying to coordinate all the different agreements. The ramp is technically oversold at 104%, but it's still very well below industry standards, which is about 15 to 30%, just with people coming in and out of ramps at different times. So we're still definitely within the range for the ramp. So talking about our parking obligations, and sorry, got that one in there. It's really started when, back in like 2015, when the design center was coming forward, when we had, Ascension was there, and Theta was looking at, having their headquarters in downtown, and we started to kind of feel a crunch. Some of you were probably on council then, and you probably, heard my predecessor say, we have to find parking, and everybody was looking for parking in any spot and any street, for these businesses. So with that, the city started acquiring properties in this area. You can see I have them highlighted here for future parking. It was kind of part of the Plexus Design Center and the surface parking lot. So that parking lot to the west there, that is for the Plexus Design Center staff. So the city still owns these multiple parcels here, and we're just kind of sitting on them. In the past, my predecessor had talked about that was maybe where this parking ramp could go. The ramp was included in previous CIPs. I know it was a hefty number. In the past, I think it was probably between $15 to $16 million. That was from quotes from, I think, early 2023. So this year, when I kind of came on board, I just kept it in there. I did increase it a little bit just because I thought the number for the spots they wanted, it was a little low. Industry standard is about $25,000 to $50,000 per spot in a parking ramp, depending on environmental conditions and what's going on underneath. So I used $35,000 just to kind of be in the middle of that. So that's how I came up with $20 million that was included in the CIP for 28 and 29. That would construct approximately 570 spots. So as I started diving more into this after the CIP was done, it became apparent that we didn't need 570 spots in a ramp right away, right now. I don't know if we'll need them tomorrow. I don't know if we'll need them in 5 years, but right now we don't need them. When you're going to construct a ramp, you're heavily dependent on that monthly, the permits, the rates, the funds that you get, the permit parking fees to help fund it. If it's in a TIF, certainly a project that could, increase the increment, that could help too. But right now, if we just looked at what we could charge for parking, that income, it'd be very hard to make this work because we don't have somebody that needs 570 spots in a ramp to pay for it for 6 years or whatever. So that's the conclusion we came to from a staff perspective. I've been talking with, Director Rasmussen, Director Kaiser, Mayor Lang, talking through all the different scenarios on, how we should move forward. I do think because we're right at capacity at the ramp, and we still have to work with potentially Ascension. We still have to work with Plexus. I do think we need some parking. So this is some of our thoughts here. We own this property, and if we did a surface parking lot, we could get approximately 125 spots. Obviously, it wouldn't be the full 570, but it would be for a fraction of the cost. We could have that parking. It could support, some of the parking needs we may have now or in the future. It could give us a little cushion. And then if anything, let's just say in 5-10 years, we do need that parking ramp, then we would kind of have that foundation. We'd have the acquisition, we'd have the property, we'd have that lot that we could use to build that structure. So the city has borrowed approximately $1 million in TID 10 starting in, I think, 2019 through 2022 at different times for acquisition of 2 parcels that the city still doesn't own, and then for the parking ramp design. So with those funds, if we would reallocate those funds to construct the parking lot and acquire those 2 properties, we could potentially even have some funds left over that could go to a different CIP project, but then at least we could have another 125 spaces and then, be able to support some of that downtown growth. So recommendations. This is what we're thinking. Short term, we need to amend Alta's parking agreement. They are at the end of the term of their agreement for the rates, so that's something we're going to be discussing a little bit later. But their parking needs have changed a little bit too, so we want that to reflect in the parking agreement. We'd like to create a master parking agreement with Plexus. There's probably no less than 5 different parking agreements with them, and we'd really like to condense it all into one agreement and talk about, do you need those 74 spots? That was from back in 2008. So things have definitely changed. Since COVID hit, a lot of our businesses downtown have at least offered a hybrid option, so folks maybe are in a couple, 2 to 3 days a week. So we want to make sure that we have enough for that kind of that flex time, but know that we can definitely, share some of those spots. Determine Ascension's parking needs, amend their agreement. Remove the parking ramp from the CIP. Utilize those already borrowed funds to acquire and potentially construct the surface parking lot. Long term, I'd like to review all the parking agreements just to make sure they're somewhat consistent and have all the necessary information we need for future city staff to make sure they can understand it. And then just review the parking permit process. Excuse me. Right now, the businesses keep track of the permits they have, and it's kind of not working well, so we want to review it. So that is what I have for downtown parking, just our obligations and inventory. Does anybody have questions? Just gonna get
Alderman Polno?
Thank you, Mayor. Director Effort, thank you for this excellent presentation. It's very informative. One question, the short-term objectives and long-term objectives. It seems to me that you probably have these in orders of priority, that you want to do the agreements probably first before you move on some of the, so you know kind of what the reality versus the 2008 vision versus now. You do those agreements and get the real thing before you would probably recommend property acquisition and or construction of a parking lot. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Plex is like, actually, we're going to expand and we need 500 spots, we want to make sure we're prepared for that. So we want to make sure our businesses are set and they feel good about being here. So that's, I would agree with that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Steiner?
I'd also like to say thank you. I appreciate it. This was, for me, the most big picture, comprehensive view of the parking situation since I've been on council, and it's really helpful. Just to throw this out there, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in this by any means, but is there reason why we always have to own parking? Because there's a lot of cities that have privatized parking, just as a thought.
Absolutely not. And with the parking ramp, some communities are doing public-private partnerships where, it's a private investor. Sometimes they're building, mixed use on the bottom or on the top. So there's a lot of different options you can do.
Okay. And then I've heard the term a lot that it's not a parking problem, but a walking problem. I think I know what that means, but maybe if you could just
Sure.
explain that
Especially
more.
in the Midwest. We're not big city folk. Sorry if you think we are. But, if we can't find a parking spot right in front, we are like, oh. Yet, we'll walk to the back of, the parking lot in Walmart all the way to the back of the store and think nothing of it. So walking a couple blocks in a larger city from a parking lot to your job is not a huge deal. Right. So that's it's probably just the mindset we have, that we do have quite a bit of parking in a lot, maybe a block away, but they want it right, next to their business.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of what I thought it was more. Because, granted, I don't commute there every single day, but I commute a fair amount. And I know this is anecdotal. It's not data.
Of
But I don't ever have an issue finding parking, even mornings, afternoons. Obviously, maybe someone who works there day in and day out has a different experience, but I've just always been able
Right.
to find it. Even when there's events, and for me, 2 or 3 blocks isn't as big a deal as long as, there's proper, like handicap parking as an example for people that have trouble getting around. That's important. But I mean, I think if somebody has to walk 2 or 3 blocks, it's not
Right.
too huge a deal.
Yeah, and you mentioned you can always find parking, and that's the thing. We may have a lot of permits out, but that doesn't mean every spot is taken every day.
Right.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. The next item on the agenda is approval of the council proceedings, minutes and proceedings of the February 4th regular session meeting. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of the approval of those minutes? Seeing no objection, those minutes and proceedings are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. If there's anyone here who would like to speak before council, now is the opportunity to come forward. If you would like to speak before council, please come forward, give your name and residential address. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public forum? Anyone who would like to speak?
David Rashid, 416 10th Street, Neenah. I'm speaking tonight as a private citizen, not as your city attorney. Thankfully, the unanimous not guilty verdict on January 23rd finally ended a long and painful chapter for me and my family. These false accusations took a heavy toll on us, but in the end, truth and ultimate justice prevailed. I want to thank the mayor, most members of this council, past and present, and our police department for believing in the facts and standing by the principle that everyone deserves the presumption of innocence. Your trust and support meant more than you know. This experience has reminded me how vulnerable anyone can be when false stories take hold, and how important it is that our justice system doesn't accept wild accusations without question, and that always seeks truth, not politics or headlines. After 2.5 years of silence, I was ready to testify and tell my own story. But when the evidence against me completely fell apart, full of contradictions and missing proof, it turned out I didn't need to say a word. The truth spoke for itself. But what this case also revealed is troubling for all of us. When those responsible for investigating or prosecuting become advocates for an outcome rather than seekers of truth, everyone is at risk. When multiple prosecutors decline to file charges for lack of evidence, but a fourth one 70 miles away takes the case anyway, something is wrong. And when thousands of pages of messages showed my innocence aren't readily shared with the jury, being instead resisted by the prosecutor, it's not justice being served. It's a system being trivialized and twisted. Those moments should concern all of us. They shake public trust and ruin lives, not just mine, but anyone's that could be next. And though I'm grateful for the verdict, one question still lingers. After false accusations, one-sided media coverage, and years of silence, how does someone get their reputation back? The mayor's early gag order, likely issued for legal reasons, meant I couldn't speak, and neither could many of you. Unfortunately, that silence gave way to rumors, gossip, assumptions, and sadly, even some backstabbing. So now I invite anyone with questions to come and talk to me directly. Let's put rumors to rest and move forward together. My hope and my commitment is to help this community heal and continue the good work we've all dedicated ourselves to. Let's turn the page and focus on what's next for our city. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public forum? Seeing no one, I will close the public forum. Is there anyone from council who would like to address anything from the public forum? Seeing no one, I will move on to item 7, the consent agenda. 2 items on that, the temporary Class B picnic license application to St. Gabriel Parish, 900 Geiger Street, Neenah, for Friday fish fries to be held February 20th, February 27th, March 3rd, March 13th, and March 27th. The second item, a change of agent application for Christ Oil Company doing business as Christ Food Market, number 56, 1305 South Commercial Street, new agent Sierra Griffin. Is there any objection to unanimous consent of those items? Seeing none, those 2 items are approved. Moving on then to the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of January 27th. Chairman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, I will be reporting out from the regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of January 27th, 2026. Minutes can always be found on the city website. There's only one item on this report out, and its committee recommends council approve the purchase of a Bobcat E35 mini excavator from Bobcat Plus Appleton in the amount of $93,078.94 using 2026 capital equipment budgeted funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device.
It doesn't have a, I had nothing. Thank you.
That motion passes 9-0. The next item on the agenda is also Public Services and Safety Committee of February 10th. Chairman Lundrum.
Thank you. Reporting out from regular Public Services and Safety Committee meeting of February 10th, 2026. Again, minutes can always be found on the city website. We have 4 items tonight. Item number 1, committee recommends council approve the purchase of a K9 and a 5-week training and certification program from Jessiphany Canine Services, Iron Ridge, Wisconsin, in the amount not to exceed $19,000 using K9 Trust Fund funds. And I would so move, and I just, after the second, I'd like to mention that Captain Van Zambeek is here if anybody wants to hear about this.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Council President Borchert. Discussion on this item.
Would you like to come up and do a quick little presentation? And maybe explain a little bit about the trust fund, too.
Sure. The trust fund, I'll start off with, we've been raising funds since probably 2011 when we had our first K9 Cedric. Those funds continue to be added to every year through different fundraisers that we've had, like the little plushy dogs and things like that, and then just donations that people tend to just come right into the police department and drop off for us. So that fund is enough to fund this dog for the $19,000. Jessiphany is the kennel that we used for K9 Bobby, which was our second K9. They have really come along with their training. They're turning out a lot of great dogs from that kennel. I've talked to Investigator Gordon, who was Cedric's handler, and also Officer Mulroy, Investigator Mulroy, that had Canine Bobby. So the training would start in late March and be done beginning of May. So be hitting the road about that time.
Thank you.
Alderman Erickson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question on who is going to be the handler of the dog.
It is going to be Bryce Sweeney.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Captain Van Sambeek? Alderman Lundrum?
I don't have a question. I just would want to encourage everyone, if you have a memorial that you are wondering where you would like to donate, this would be a perfect donation spot for those monies.
Great idea. Seeing no further discussion, there's a motion and a second on the table. Please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 2, committee recommends council approve the purchase of equipment and services to install a new license plate reading system for parking enforcement at a cost not to exceed $45,000, with funding coming from the 2026 police capital equipment budget. And after I get a second, I would like to invite the community service aide supervisor Bedore up to give a little explanation, and I will make a motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Weber.
Hello, Council. So what we would need to have done, these are improvements to our existing parking vehicle that does downtown parking enforcement specifically. The equipment that we use in the vehicle is approximately 10 years old, including the computer system and the license plate reader system. The software requirements needed to run this vehicle is not able to run on the current equipment. It can't keep up with it. It can't keep up with it, and it's just struggling a lot. The connections on the old equipment, like the actual hardware where things plug in, are failing. Things are coming unplugged. Things are not staying plugged in. Things are not getting read on the computer. So over the past year, our parking enforcement has gotten very difficult and tedious. We are, at this point, very rarely able to do time limit parking because of the connection failures with the equipment to the computer in the system. Permit parking also can get very tedious with those equipment failures. In combination with the license plate readers and the GPS, it's very hard for our community service aides to do parking and do it in any sort of efficient manner. So these funds would be used to get a new computer system, a new docking system, and new license plate readers to be able to do that parking enforcement.
Is there any discussion on this item? Thank you very much for your informative information for us. Seeing no further discussion, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Item number 3, committee recommends council approve the proposal from Suburban Electric to replace the City Hall fire alarm system, which I believe is original, in the amount of $33,448.03 using 2026 budgeted capital facility funds, and I would so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Paulno. Discussion on this item. Any questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
And the fourth and last, committee recommends council approve the final resolution 2026-01, installation of sanitary sewer, lateral and water service construction on Elm Street, Henry Street, Loudon Boulevard, Reed Street, Sterling Avenue, and Greenfield Street, and I would so move.
So motion by Alderman Lundrum, seconded by Alderman Weber. Discussion on this item. Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a shout out to Director Kaiser. He's been getting inundated by a lot of fairly frosty, sometimes emails by his constituents in regards to streets, and he's answered them very succinctly and very informative. And I know that is not the easiest thing to do when you have a lot on your plate. So I just want to thank you for that.
Is there any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is the regular Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of February 9th. Chairman Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out from the regular Finance Personnel Committee meeting from February 9th. Minutes can be found on the city website. Item number 1, committee recommends council ratify the engagement of attorney William P. Scott for all work completed for the city from 2023 through 2025, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Ellis. Discussion on this item. Alderman Paulno.
Thank you, Mayor. In the public appearance section of the committee, I'd ask, because I was kind of, for transparency purposes, what exactly we're approving, because we're not approving a dollar amount. As I understand it, for this time frame is $87,000 that has been already expended in regard to Arrowhead Legal Services, and this is not approving the contract. Attorney Rashid had explained that there was no need to do that in open session. Just so I'm clear, it had to be a closed session, and there's no legal reason to have closed session on these. And I just want to state for the record that, as an alderman, there's always the quandary of legal protections versus policy. And I find it troubling that, and I understand the legal dynamic, where we don't want to tip our hand to certain parties at certain times. But this has always been problematic for me as an alderman, not having the information in regard to this attorney, and this is attorney for Arrowhead Park, which we've spent over close, I think, since 2010, $3.5 million, to make decisions as aldermen. I just think it's important that we have that information, and we don't have that information. So in this item on the agenda, whether if we passed it or not, it really has no impact. We're not approving a contract. We're not approving a dollar amount that's already been expended. So maybe this is, the only, and I said at the committee meeting, the only people that really understand what this is on the agenda are people in this room. And I don't think that's good for transparency, government transparency, and openness of government. So for that reason is why I'll be voting against this item. Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-1.
Item number 2, committee recommends council authorize the city attorney and director of community development to engage the services of attorney William P. Scott on an ongoing and as-needed basis for an amount not to exceed $25,000 in 2026 without further approval, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Ellis. Is there any discussion? Alderman Palmo.
Thank you, Mayor. As I stated previously, the same reasons I will be voting against this, because the work product of this attorney we will not be privy to per the city attorney and his concerns about legalities. I just think policy in a closed session should and can be discussed, because I think this is a precedent that could grow for lack of transparency, and that concerns me. Thank you.
Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Attorney, are we doing everything legal and by standards for this operation? Is there something that we should be doing that we're not, or vice versa? I would just hate for anybody to think that we're doing something that isn't correct.
No, there's nothing that we're doing improperly, and as far as the precedent goes, it's from time immemorial that we hire legal professionals to give us advice and craft strategies so that we would follow those, in this case, to try to persuade the DNR of some very complex things that have existed in that location since 1951. And never, as your city attorney, would I broadcast prematurely what that advice and those strategies are. I can't imagine any of you would think that would be a good idea. So I won't do that. And the reason for the closed session when we had it at committee was to describe in very vague, very broad terms the sorts of things that we're hiring him to do at $400 an hour. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Our relationship with Attorney Scott goes back decades, back to the early 2000s. And Chris Hayes' service here as the Director of Community Development. So I don't quite still understand what the pushback is about this, but I think that most of you understand why we're doing this and the prudence in doing so. So we'll continue, and when the time is right, we'll reveal what we need to reveal to the parties that need to hear.
And as history would dictate, Mr. City Attorney, the city has used this mechanism multiple times in the past for issues such like this. So this isn't anything that's brand new.
Correct. When there's something that is either beyond the expertise of the city attorney or beyond my ability to handle the matters given all of my other responsibilities, it's not unusual at all to reach out to other outside experts and engage their services. That's what was done here, and I anticipate it'll be done again in the future.
Thank you.
Alderman Paul No.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to clarify. I was alderman from 2012 to 2018, and Jim Gillespie was our city attorney, and we'd hired multiple outside attorneys, including the Fox River cleanup and many consultants, and he always gave us either a memo explaining what was going on, or he gave it to us verbally in a city committee meeting, closed session, of course. So this is different than that experience from my personal experience. I also reviewed the frequently asked questions of legal municipalities to reach out, make sure I wasn't improper, and it stated in there, can a city official sign a contract without government body approval? It said no, unless that city official is specifically granted those powers of contracts by the body. And, so that is my experience. I did outside homework. It's just, this impacts policy. We're spending millions of dollars, and I would press any alderman to ask their neighbors or the people they talk to, should you be aware as an alderman of what's happening with this attorney in such a high-dollar, high-profile site? And I would be hard-pressed for anybody, I would like to hear the story of any of their neighbors that would come and tell them that, no, you should not be informed of what's going on. It's just basic government. So I do have an issue with this as an open government item, and that's why.
I think it's also basic government that when there are confidential matters entrusted to the members of the council, that those will be kept as such. And in the 3+ years that I have been here, multiple times confidential things intended to be kept confidential have been leaked to outside places and the press. I can't allow that to happen, and I have taken an oath to make sure that that doesn't when it involves sensitive legal matters. So perhaps that's a difference with a distinction from when my predecessor, Jim Godlewski, was here. Perhaps that wasn't happening on his watch, but it has happened on mine, so I'm not going to allow that to continue. So when it's appropriate to release something in writing, I will, but when I deem that it's not, I won't. And in terms of the approval of the contract, that's why we brought this to the attention of the committee some weeks back, because there was some question about whether Chris Hayes and I should have engaged these services when we did in 2024. So now we've taken steps to rectify that.
And I'll just end it. I respect the city attorney's position. It's a disagreement. I've also taken an oath and to, for the citizens and to do my job as best I can. I want the best possible information. And for this item, I just don't have it.
Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. We've all taken the oath, Bill, and I appreciate where you're coming from on that. From my world, I will state for the record that when the city, in the 40 years on and off that I have sat here, negotiated on issues and items and dealing with other governmental agencies, it's not do we tell our constituents, it is a question of when. And when you're in the early stages of that, it's like playing poker, and you don't play poker showing your hand and letting them keep theirs closed. no one that I have seen in my history in the city of Neenah from an elected position has withheld information that was inferior as to what we were doing. It's the question of when do we share that, not if, because we always have. So I can respect the timeliness, but in my opinion, by doing what is recommended by some to talk prematurely and not have the entire story laid out in front of us as to what's going on and where's it going, I think is disrespectful to the citizens that we're elected to represent, because we can't do our job if we share everything in a manner that's not timeliness to complete the project. Thank you, Mayor.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 8-1.
Item number 3, committee recommends council reclassify the recruitment and retention coordinator position in grade 9, non-exempt, to the deputy director of human resources and safety in grade 11, exempt, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Bruno. Discussion on this item. Alderman Palmo.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Barber, could you come forward? I think I remember when this originally came to committee, there was a lot of talk about creating new positions, or, creating a new position by reclassification. But so is this just strictly a reclassification, or is this a whole new position, in your opinion?
So this is part of what caught us up the first time around in September. Yep. When I say us, I wasn't here, but I understand that was the issue. So I did create a list of sort of clarifying what the difference is. So if there is what I'll call a new position, is if a vacancy is created, a person is going to move into that position. If there's already someone in a position and we're making changes, whether we title it the same thing, change it a grade, call it something different, there's no vacancy created in that case. So in this case, we're looking at a change to a position that some of the changes have already been made, and then some of them will be able to be made from the exempt status of the position. But there's no vacancy here. We already have a person in the position. If she wasn't moved into this role, for example, if we ran a recruitment process for this role, she would be out of the job if she didn't get it. So that's the distinction we've made in the past on how to decide whether to run a recruitment, as whether a vacancy exists in the position creation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Item number 4, committee recommends council authorize the sale of public property located along Enterprise Drive to Horseshoe Beverage Company in the amount of $10,000, and I so move.
So motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Palno. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The Neenah National Fire Rescue Joint Finance and Personnel Committee meeting of February 17th was canceled, so there is no report. The next item is the regular Plan Commission meeting of February 10th. Council Representative Steiner.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting out for the regular Plan Commission meeting of February 10th. Minutes can be found on the city website. Commission recommends council approve ordinance number 2026-01 for the project plan for Surgery Center of the Fox Valley, located at 1540 Leone Drive, subject to the conditions of the project plan approval letter, and I so move.
There's a motion by Alderman Steiner, seconded by Alderman Palno. Discussion on this item. Seeing none, please cast your vote on your voting device. That motion passes 9-0.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Board of Public Works meeting, information only item, so no report on that. The Business Improvement District Board meeting of February 17th. Alderman Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of points of information. We'll be having our annual get-together. We do next month, and we'll also be embarking from the bid group along with F&I to survey the area businesses as to what's working, what's not working, what are their needs, what are their wants, and that helps us project then for future. And then secondarily, we have approved, along with the help of the city of Neenah and FNI, some beautiful new lighting that will be going, and you'll be noticing it late this year. It's quite spectacular, it's quite stunning. It will be on the bump outs for the trees initially. We'll be able to swap out the colors for whatever the season, whatever the the holiday might be, and it's a terrific collaborative effort with all three of the groups, and I think it's something that everybody is going to really enjoy, helping to keep Neenah downtown the way that it is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your report. The library board meeting, Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Library Board of Trustees met today at 4 o'clock. I'd like to highlight 2 events that have already occurred. The Stuffed Animal Clinic for Kids was highly successful. For 6 years, the library has partnered with the Neenah High School CNA students to offer a stuffed animal clinic. Animal owners fill out intake paperwork and a waiting room. Animals get a full checkup, and they leave with a prescription for hugs and reading. This year was our best attended clinic ever at 212. And I'd also like to highlight Neenah's Cafe. Thanks to the diligence and hard work of the volunteers and staff, we now know that over 2,200 people play in Neenah's Cafe every month, which is new at the library. So if you haven't been to the library for a while, please check it out. It is on the first floor. I'd also like to highlight that on March 14th, Saturday, March 14th, from 11:30 to 2:30, there will be a repair cafe. So you can bring in your broken items, and our fixers will do their best to repair them for free. Computers, phones, small appliances, electronics, sewing, mending, jewelry, watches, and more. So this has been a very, very popular event that is held about twice a year at the library. So if you've got something that you'd like to get repaired, please come and check it out. And then, since we've had such great spring weather, I'd like to highlight another event, Suburban Homesteading. There's going to be an introduction to seed starting, and that will be on Tuesday, March 31st at 6:30 in the Shattuck Room. So come and get tips on starting seeds and from somebody who knows how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
And as always, make sure you check out some books.
Thank you for that. And the next item is also Alderman Erickson, the Arts Council.
Thank you, Mayor. The Neenah Arts Council met on Wednesday, February 11th. 2 items I'd like to highlight. We have 2 new members, Jacqueline Batley and Riley Seib are both new members to the Neenah Arts Council, and we're excited to have them on board. And we talked about at our Arts Council meeting the upcoming events for the year. One new item that we have coming up is the National Lighthouse Day, which will be at Kimberly Point, and we will be participating with that with an art activity at that event, and that is going to be on Friday, August 7th, 2026. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. The Landmarks Commission, Alderman Weber.
Thank you, Mayor. The minutes from the February 11th Landmarks Commission will be posted on the city website. Nothing significant for the council tonight.
Thank you for your report. Are there any petitions?
No petitions.
Are there any council directives? Is there any unfinished business? New business? I just have one item. I anticipate that by the end of the week, we will be able to provide Alderman with a strategic plan, so be on the lookout for that. Any other new business? Alderman Lundrum.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that we have an AED that is right next to the women's restroom out in the lobby. And if you walk by it year after year, it just blends in. So the new AEDs are, I would call them idiot-proof, because really all you have to do is turn it on, and it will walk you through all the steps that you need if you see somebody go down and become unconscious. So I just want everyone, when they leave, just take a glance up on the wall to make sure that you always remember that it's there. Thank you.
Are there any other announcements? Alderman Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we have the fire chief here, I have a question. Since sturgeon spearing was so popular and the weather was so warm, I was wondering if you have an update on how many water rescues or ice rescues that you have had to do. And
Not including Brian.
Including this morning's rescue, 3.
okay,
So one on the Friday during cut-in, it wasn't in our area, but we were paged to assist the town of Neenah. One on opening morning, and then one this morning.
okay. I was driving on Sunday and I saw 2 fire trucks on the end of Wisconsin Avenue with the boat, and I didn't know if it was a practice or if they were there to provide service to somebody.
Maybe I take that back. I was thinking opening day, but it was Sunday morning. It
Okay.
wasn't opening day. Sunday morning during the fog.
Okay,
It was a real call.
all right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Any other announcements? The next item on the agenda is closed session. The Common Council may convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, and the conducting of other specified public business. As competitive or bargaining reasons require closed sessions for 118 West Peckham Street and a parking agreement with Alta Realty.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to move into closed session. Oh, yeah. Please cast your vote on your voting device to go into closed session. That motion passes 9-0. We'll take a brief break and return for the closed session.
The City of Neenah is pleased to provide video recordings of City Council meetings. Neenah residents can get information about City Council meetings, City Committee meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the City website, www.neenahgov.org. Neenah residents can express their opinions about city issues by contacting the mayor's office, contacting their city alderman, or completing the electronic feedback form on the city website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.